We're just okay, and we play some
Movies.
games. We're just okay.
Movie
games.
watchers.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Okay Movies. I'm your host, BIGGIESIZE, and I'm joined by...
Wally?
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Nasty.
Hey, fellas, how are you all doing this week?
Doing good. How are you doing, Biggie?
Not too bad. How you doing, Wally?
Doing all right. It's a hump day.
Hump day.
Absolutely, man.
Halfway to the weekend.
Almost there. You guys plan on seeing Deadpool 2 this weekend?
Maybe not this weekend. Infinity War was my indulgence.
So, Nasty, are you excited to see Deadpool 2?
Yeah. I mean, like, the first one was definitely cool. I like Deadpool just because he's like the kind of like fuck you to the rest of the world, like especially when it comes to like the whole comic series, right? Like it's kind of like everybody else is trying so hard to stay in character, and he's just like so hard to just break that fourth wall every fucking time that he gets an opportunity to.
Some might say he's the middle finger to the comic book series. Would you agree with that?
I definitely would. Wally, what do you think?
Yeah, he's the fourth wall breaker of everything, and I think they need that, especially when there's so few characters that do that. It's kind of the stress valve, the steam valve, if you will, for comic books. Also it's a good mirror, canary in the coal mine for how much they take themselves too seriously or not. I love anti-heroes too, and he's Wade's a fairly great anti-hero.
Absolutely. No, it was very refreshing. And Ryan Reynolds, he just seems like he's so good. His humor, even his voice, everything just kind of fits that character so well. Just in my mind.
He's a huge Deadpool fan, and like he single-handedly made that film happen almost. So,
absolutely. No,
did you
so
guys
far
know
there's...
that?
Yeah, I know he fought really hard to get it made for a long time.
He smuggled a script out.
What?
He floated a script to somebody when they said not to do it, or something along those lines, and sure enough, the gamble paid off because whoever he showed the script to really liked it, and they got it funded.
I know when they released that trailer, it was all digital, but they had the voiceovers for it. It caught a lot of waves, and apparently that was leaked as well. At least that was the rumor. And that kind of that got my attention. I was like, wow, this looks like a blast.
It was a lot of leaks, basically, that to keep a shadow campaign going for it.
And the thing made bank for an R-rated movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So I'm pumped too. It looks funny. The second trailer they showed, because during my screen of Infinity War, they showed a trailer for it, and I loved it. I was on board at that point. I wasn't too sure before, maybe it'll pander too much, and who knows, maybe it actually will. But just from the trailers, on board. Looks like an absolute blast, and I can't wait to watch it.
Hell yeah!
All right, well, I think we'll just go ahead and jump straight into our discussion for this week. We all love games. We're all big
right.
gamers. It's Nasty. Do you love games?
I do. I think that games are a great stress relief and a great way to build friendship.
If you were going to choose between gameplay or story, if you're going to have a game, which one do you think would be the most important thing for you?
For me, it's going to be gameplay, just because I tend to gravitate more towards like multiplayer games, and gameplay is definitely more important, I feel like, when you have a lot of people playing together than the story. The story to me is like single player, like God, right? If you have a single player game that has no story, nobody's going to fucking play it.
I am the exact opposite. I come from
The Land Down Under.
I come from a land down under. I like Vegemite. No, I come from an earlier generation of games when multiplayer wasn't a foregone conclusion.
Right.
And so I don't have that heritage to draw from in terms of how I identify my foundation in gaming. So I came into multiplayer, like I kind of stapled it on. I don't always do well with multiplayer centric games.
Really?
And I love the people aspect. That's actually what keeps me going, is the social aspect of multiplayer.
Right,
that's
right.
why I find such value in it. But the gameplay for me is kind of a backseat. I'm a big story guy, so I love single player games, and I love games that I have to like turn the next page of the story, and even if I have even just the slightest modicum of agency in determining the outcome of that story, I have some ownership over it. That makes it all the more engaging and intoxicating an experience for me.
I
Okay.
would agree with you there. I've always leaned more towards the story. I can forgive a lot of gameplay elements as long as the story is good and I'm
Now,
invested.
me too. But I will say though that it's not a blank check. If
Sure.
a single player game has shitty gameplay, it just ruins the game. So I mean, it needs to have something. It isn't just like a point and click thing for me.
Sure, absolutely. One game I always think about, and it's definitely not the best example. I'm sure there's way better ones, and a lot of people disagree with me. Is the first Metal Gear Solid game on PlayStation?
Okay.
Even at the time, the gameplay was all right. It was fun, it was definitely interesting, being a little more stealthy and stuff like that. But honestly, if the story was not as interesting and maybe a little too complex for its own good, but still at least very interesting, I don't know if I would have kept playing, honestly.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the story does help with Metal Gear. You get attached to the characters and whatnot. The
right.
Metal Gear's a very interesting choice. I'm kind of happy you picked that because, in my opinion, Metal Gear is an excellent example of setting versus story. I think it
Sure.
has a very intriguing setting, and the story does have some like eye-catching elements to it, especially early on. But if you play the rest of the Metal Gear series, it gets pretty fucking weird really quick. And by that point, people play because they love Snake and they love
Right.
the weirdness of the villains and just the randomness of the plot. So it's almost a story in spite of itself. But
Absolutely.
but it's just
Absolutely.
interesting.
It
Make a
is.
great
It
movie
is.
though if they could figure out a way of untangling the rat's nest.
Exactly. And that brings us back to our discussion. Movies or games being turned into movies. It happens all the time. And definitely some are a little more successful than others. And I kind of agree with Nasty, or I see his point when he says gameplay is more important to him than necessarily story. And then when you take a game, and maybe even a game that didn't necessarily have a great story, like, I mean, the best one off the top of my head is the original Tomb Raider movie they did with Angelina Jolie. The story was there, but it wasn't great. And then you're trying to make a story you care about from a game that was primarily gameplay, and you get kind of mixed results. And I think we all have our own opinions on what game that we really care about for various reasons, and we'd love to see that in a live action or even an animated movie. I mean, that would be completely acceptable. What game would that be? And you know what, Nasty? I think I'll start with you, man. What game would you love to see as a film? What do you think would really make that transition? And even if you have any points that you'd like to see in that movie that you think would really help drive home the essence of that game.
Yeah, so when you first brought this topic up, I was like, what game would I really want? And I think that, if you would have asked me this 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I'd say, World of Warcraft definitely, just because I'm so involved and the history there is just so involved in the story behind it.
Shout out
Um,
to the movie, by the way. I know you're
I
getting there, but they
yeah,
did a good job.
I think that they did a really good job of actually like portraying a lot of the things that made wow, right? The involvement of the strife between the Horde and the Alliance, and the character building. But neither here nor there. If you haven't seen that, I would say go check it out. But if you haven't seen that, I don't know what you're doing, listening to us. Uh, um, but I think that a game that would be really interesting to see turned into a movie, and this might just be me pandering, would be Diablo. I think that
Great movie,
the
yeah.
the whole uh, you know trilogy and then some, because of all the expansions that we keep getting, um, just has so much story behind it, and I think that there's just a lot of connection with the characters as well, and it's just been around forever, right? I think that there's some when people were waiting for Diablo 3, it was what, 10 years, right, between those
Yeah.
two.
Sure.
So I
Almost.
think that I could see people wanting to see a little bit more into um, that universe.
Absolutely. I know there's definitely a lot of lore. I think I've only played Diablo 2 and 3. I never played the first one, but the amount of backstory, and even a lot of stories that are hinted within the game, are really fascinating. It definitely sets up an interesting world. And of course, Blizzard's really good at that. I mean,
Right.
even with StarCraft, they do an excellent job in trying to build a world that's interesting. And but no, I think Diablo's an excellent choice. Uh, where do would you say start with Diablo 1 and move on,
Oh
or
yeah.
would be a better starting point? So
What do you
what
think,
would
Mm,
Nasty?
no, I think that taking the Warcraft approach, right? Like hit on some high level things that weren't actually included in the games,
okay?
right? Like we understand that there was certain things that had to take place in the Warcraft world for the games to actually take place, right? Between uh the Warcraft games themselves and World of Warcraft, there I feel like the movie kind of fit right in the middle there. And I
Okay.
think that Diablo prequel or maybe filling in some blanks somewhere in there.
Very nice, very nice. So take kind of take those elements and try to build a story. Not necessarily go play by play of the game itself, but kind of build a story around those elements.
Right, right.
Very good, very good. Well, what about you, Wally? What's the game you would love to see as a film, and what do you want to see out of it? What would really sell it?
Just for shout, I want to mention World of Warcraft one more time because I
Oh,
love
sure.
how they pulled from the lore that from the original Warcraft series. Because it's like a whole timeline that leads into World of Warcraft, and they actually honored that. And I just don't think enough people appreciate that. I know it's kind of a long movie, but anyway.
Right.
What's the other thing? I would probably have to say, but it's kind of a movie already, so it's really tough for me. But The Last of Us,
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
yeah.
I think it would be an excellent film, especially if they don't make it actiony and weird, but they actually keep the original tone and pacing of the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's one thing I love so much about that game was I don't know if I've ever felt a game designed like that. I felt so helpless, and how much you really had to think about the resources you had available. It kind of reminded me a little bit of oh shoot, what's that game called? Resident Evil, where you had to really manage your inventory, but it felt even more personal than that. I guess that's just the storyline. Is it Joel? Joel's the main character, isn't he?
Yeah. Well,
He.
you know what it reminded me of tone wise? Is The Quiet Place.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen that yet, but it's a lot that the kind of idea of just making a sound and vulnerability and alien nature, like a world that we were once familiar with, turned upside down and on its head.
Biggie, what would you
Oh,
choose?
Yeah, what would you choose, man?
it's tough, man. There's so many good ones. I would. My favorite game series of all time is Metal Gear, and in a way, I would love to see a movie based on that. But I don't know how well it would turn out. So that definitely isn't one I would necessarily pick. It'd be like maybe my second or third choice. My mind just keeps going to Chrono Trigger and just
Oh,
Okay.
how wonderful of a story that is. It's a little complex and it branches, and that's where it's hard to decide. If you were going to make a movie, which storyline do you pick? Because you've got different endings you can take depending on the time period you decide to go against the main bad guy, and I can't remember his name now. And so you kind of have to sit there, kind of like what you talked about, Nasty, is kind of take those elements and try to put together a nice cohesive film, but still try to capture that essence. Because I don't know if I've ever played a game where I went from so happy go lucky, and then I stepped through a portal and the tone just flips itself on its head. And you feel so dour and sad, but in a good way, because it just you're just all about this adventure, and then you're like, oh my god, this story, if time is allowed to go the way it is, has a very sad ending.
Right.
But you've got the ability to do something about it, and that's just great character design, that's great pacing, that's just stuff we don't see as much anymore, and that just has all the hallmarks of a great film. The gameplay is fine. It's really, even compared to some not RTS RPGs of the time, the battle system's a little simplistic, but I think that's by design because you're just so wrapped up in this world that you could do some pretty neat stuff, but it's not the most critical part of the game.
Right, right.
And that's just always been a game that I thought could make an excellent movie in the right hands. But it would definitely be an undertaking, and I can understand why some may have decided not to, or even the creators, Squaresoft at the time, may not want to pass that off to someone. But that's definitely a game that really, it really sticks with you from beginning to end.
I was thinking, well, Red Dead Redemption, it's already a film again. Really, it's the best Western I've ever played, so to speak.
Absolutely.
I'd love to see it as a film, though, see what they would do with it.
I was talking with Megan, because I told her the topic that we were going to be talking about,
yeah.
And she had mentioned a couple. She wants to see a Crazy Taxi movie.
That would be fun.
It would be. If done right, it actually could be a lot of fun. How would you design a Crazy Taxi movie? Maybe it'd be like...
Well, it would have to be some kind of zany comedy kind of a thing.
Yeah, it would. Oh, you know what would be a good setting? Okay, it's a cab company, a tiny mom and pop cab company, and Uber and Lyft have just destroyed their business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so they're like, okay, we have got to bend the rules. So they get some wacky, teen drivers who are, maybe you got the one who's just kind of a crazy, anti-establishment guy. So he's just, he's willing to do whatever. Whatever it'll take to get them to their destination the fastest. And maybe you got one who's just a terrible driver, but he's reliable. That kind of concept. And so they're
or he was a taxi driver, but like he did something bad and like got his license pulled. This is his one shot at redemption.
Exactly. So they're just driving all over the place. They're just worried about getting there as quick as possible. Not too bad, Wally.
I like
too bad. I think we're on to something. That is plausible.
Who would star in it though?
Ooh, that's a good
Vin
question.
Diesel.
No.
He would totally do it.
I'm thinking like the crew of Rat Race. Like would be everybody from that whole movie, just import them into Crazy Taxi.
Absolutely. Like Mr. Bean, he would just like fall asleep while he's driving.
He's a race. I'm winning.
I'm winning. I like
this
it.
reminds me of that fucking bicycle movie that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, what the fuck was it called?
No idea.
Bicycle movie. Gordon Levitt.
Somebody's gonna be yelling this right now, like yelling at us, like, what the fuck?
Bicycle movie?
Yeah, it was a bicycle movie. Premium Rush? Was that the name of it? Yeah.
What
Premium Rush. And on the cover it says "Ride Like Hell," where basically this dude was a bicycle delivery driver, and like it's his last opportunity to make things right. It's a shit movie. If you're looking for something to like make fun of all night,
heard of that.
Go fucking watch it.
Bicycle movie called Premium Rush.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. I like that. Let's see. Another one for movies that she mentioned was League of Legends, and that is
it had to rear its head eventually.
Eventually, and I'm with you, Nasty. That I think if they were gonna do one, they'd have to just make something out of it. Just like create a timeline. Use all of the regions and stuff, and just try to make something cohesive. And I mean, good God. I mean, where do you begin?
It would almost have to like start out. I think that the way that they would do it best is by like breaking it down by region, right? Like,
sure,
the lore that happened in this region, the lore that happened in that region, and why they're fighting each other. But that would be boring as fuck to watch. But there's like too much out there to even like know where the fuck to begin. And
absolutely.
And then somebody's going to be all pissed off if their fucking champion doesn't make it into the fucking movie, kind of a thing,
Right. Would you almost say you'd have to take a Marvel approach? Do like a cinematic universe.
What do you mean,
in
kill
some
everybody?
way? Spoilers.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to draw it on for fucking 15 years, but yeah, I think that wouldn't be a bad way to approach it.
Right. It's just, I guess my problem is, these characters are iconic, quote unquote, mainly because
Right.
of the design. I can't necessarily say their stories in any way impact me,
Yes.
other than just going through, some have some nice laid out stories that are sort of interesting. I wouldn't call fantastic or mind boggling, but interesting enough to have a read of 3 paragraphs.
You
But
know what it would be? It would be just like The Last Jedi, right? Where it's like just an action movie that you kind of give 0 fucks about, but is titled with something that you actually care about, and then you go watch it, and then you're super fucking disappointed.
right. I think I bet anything that's Riot's call, that they're
Wait,
afraid it would just be a massive disappointment.
Did I say Last Jedi? Because I meant to say Rogue One.
Oh,
Okay. I was getting where you were going with it.
Yeah, because Rogue One, I felt like, okay, cool. Like, I kind of give 0 fucks about any of these characters, and it's just an action movie that happens to live in the Star Wars universe.
Absolutely. Let's see. Oh, another one, Roller Coaster Tycoon. She just picked all of her favorite games.
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
made
say,
a list.
is this just a list of her favorite games?
I think along the same lines as our Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, it would be a
discussion.
roller coaster park down at its luck. And some national chains trying to move in and take all the business.
Hey,
They have
don't
one
worry.
last shot.
There was a movie called Roller Coaster that was shot in 1977, so maybe she should go check that out.
Ooh,
Maybe that's all that it
interesting.
is just a roller coaster tycoon movie.
Well, I've got 2 films I need to watch: Premium Rush and Roller Coaster. All right. Well,
God, this
guys.
looks so shit.
Well, guys, we got our very first email.
Holy
And
shit.
can you believe it? I know I am touched. And it was sent from our good friend Dianekis.
Oh,
never mind.
Mr. Lip.
Mr. Lipsum. I couldn't figure out why everyone called him Lips. And then I saw his name. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where that comes from. Very nice.
What'd you think? We're all just a bunch of assholes making fun of the size of his lips or something?
I thought
And you were
maybe.
like, I don't get it. He's got like average size lips. I don't understand.
Hey, I don't question much. I just roll with it, man. His email says, a coworker of mine exclusively uses Movie Mom to see if they should go see a movie. So, barring talking to people in real life or using Rotten Tomatoes, are there any other sources you use to see if a movie is quote unquote good?
That's a good question.
It's an excellent question, and it's you took out 2 of probably the biggest sources I would use, Rotten Tomatoes and just word of mouth. To be a little lazy, I sometimes go like Metacritic, but that's kind of cheating as well. I really feel like you can kind of just look at the news, now. Like, I'll go to a tech site or something, and if I see them talking about it quite a bit,
Yeah.
then normally that means, at least has something going on.
Right.
To get a tech site like The Verge or even Polygon or any of those to really talk about film. Like, they're still doing articles about Infinity War, and I can see why. There's a lot to digest there, and it's a good film. Just, I guess that's maybe more by osmosis, I suppose. Just kind of
Right.
going around and seeing a lot of stuff about it. Like, okay, there must be something to this film. But what about you guys?
I follow a similar vein, right? Like, I don't go to a specific place usually to figure out if I want to watch a movie. Usually it's a collective of like the previews that I've seen and the poster of the movie itself. And if people are talking about it at work, like, not specifically saying like, oh, you should go see this movie, but just like overhearing people talk about like, oh, hey, did you see that movie? And being like, no, I didn't. So I'm not going to talk to you about it because I don't want to ruin it, but maybe I'll go check it out.
Word of mouth and social media, and I don't really. Some of the web forums I sometimes belong to. I'll see if anybody's talking about it on there. But I feel like so many movies nowadays have been targeted specifically to appeal to a demographic that I know what movies are going to be meant for me and I like them, which is kind of a scary thought, but here we are, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a good trailer definitely doesn't hurt. And I think that's what's helped me with Deadpool, because I really didn't have any interest. I mean, I love the first Deadpool a lot, but I wasn't really super excited about the second one. But just a well-made trailer can help you, but as well, a poorly made trailer can really hurt. Like the first trailer for Star Trek Beyond that they released and everyone gave shit about. I didn't like it. Like the tone of it was everything I was hoping they would avoid. With just like the heavy Beastie Boys play in the background. It's all like, oh, we gotta watch out for the bad guy. Oh no, the ship's blowing up. Like, oh man, we gotta do this again. But it ended up being not that, and ended up being really, really good, and kind of going back to the kind of the old Star Trek formula for the films. Like I when Wally and I talked about it, I would rank it up there with Wrath of Khan and other really good ones as just being a solid Star Trek film. So a trailer can definitely hurt, you know, when they try to, I guess they misjudge what the fans want or what the community as a whole is willing to go see.
I do have to say though, my biggest letdown is when you see a good trailer and you go to see a movie and everything that was in the trailer is the only good parts of the movie.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
It's very frustrating.
You're absolutely right. And if there's a film, especially if it's like Star Wars or something, I really just try to avoid trailers, because I feel like in some ways it does get my hopes up. I might watch the first one, but I don't want to see any more. You just need to sell me with one trailer.
Yeah, one trailer and then stop. Just please stop.
Because you run into that. You start running out into the visuals, and you start figuring out what the plot points are.
Right.
And yeah, it just kind of ruins it, especially for something like Star Wars, where it's been kind of hitting the beats of its predecessors, and it starts getting a little disappointed. But absolutely. Whereas I will have to say for Infinity War, I don't think they did too bad of a job spoiling too much. I think I saw all the trailers, and still there was so much.
No, I didn't feel spoiled at all.
Yeah, they did a good job with those, not giving away too much. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. I've had a lot of fun talking about this one. It's been a good subject. We all love games, and it's we definitely are no shortage of movie-based games that'll be coming out, or game-based movies. God, I keep getting that backwards. Come out in the future. Hopefully, they'll be pretty decent. Hey, if you'd like to chime in about our discussion or any of our previous discussions or any question in general, please shoot us an email at justokmovies.com and follow us on Twitter. We've got 23 follows. We are too shy from our 25 goal. 2 people that are listening, please follow, or else Guido is going to get really mad. And I fear he will. I fear for our safety. Fellas, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
You guys take care. I'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.